The thrill of travel, wild adventure and big machines on this episode of Mavericks Unlimited. In the rough seas on the South African coast, whatever the weather, diamond hunters risk their lives for a big find that will enable them to live a different life. In addition, life with hundreds of scorpions or a polar bear. These men foster very special relationships to the wild animals that live with them. And extreme slackliners. At dizzying heights, they balance above an abyss with nothing but a small, thin belt under their feet. All this now on Mavericks Unlimited. We're on the South African west coast. Gary Cohen lives here. He's an adventurer who wants to strike it lucky, and he's one of the last of his kind.
I'd like to find a good spot. I'd like to find some good diamonds in places where people have never been before.
Gary is prepared to risk his life for this dream. He aims to find the most expensive gems in the world. Ocean diamonds are more valuable than any other type of diamond. Gary is searching for a treasure which only he realizes is there.
The rocks come falling down on you,
Does he think the risk is worth it?
I don't know, I heard the other day they got 115 or 110 carats or something. No.
Gary dreams of making such a find. Diamond diving is only something for adventurers.
There's no books written on how to do this job or anything. Something totally unconventional. It's quite exciting. You get to go to places where people have never been for any reason.
The large diamond companies are also looking for treasure in the ocean. However, the company's diamond ships cannot operate near the coast. This is a chance for adventurers like Gary. The hunt for diamonds means being alone on the high seas.
Some people don't like it here. I find it an honor to be able to make a living in the wild place, you know?
And to become rich in the process, just like other diamond divers before him. Gary has a unique ability. He can read the ocean.
There's nice wave action here that concentrates gravel around this corner here. Then you'll watch how the waves are breaking and where the rip currents are working. And then, of course, you need to swim the area and see how it's deposited.
The sea only appears calm at first glance. High waves and strong currents hinder Gary's work.
And this swell's just going to fuck us up underneath it. Check these swells running through here now.
Gary can only use his suction equipment when the waves are less than 2 meters. Anyone too impatient is punished by the sea. Not the only wreck on the Diamond Coast. The hope of quick riches constantly attracts new adventurers. Gary paid a lot for the mining rights to this area, but he is not the only one. His competitors are trying to drive him out of the area, but Gary doesn't let that intimidate him.
Yeah, there's a bit of a turf war going on here at the moment. I'm a happy guy. I don't need to fight with people, you know. But don't fuck with me.
The next morning, the waves have eased off, but the current drives the boat towards the coast. The men have to drop all 4 anchors, and the competition has arrived. There are only about 50 days a year when the ocean is calm enough for the men to mine diamonds. Then the race against time begins. In the shortest possible amount of time, Gary has to suck as much water, sand, and shingle to the surface as possible in the hope of finding some diamonds amongst them. The water is 10 degrees. Therefore, Gary is wearing 3 neoprene wetsuits on top of each other.
This is my job, eh? I'd rather be surfing.
Gary will stay at his diving station for 2 hours. He needs to stay very focused as the risk of injury is high. A few months ago, a diamond diver on the coast died as a result of falling rocks. The hose is connected to a massive pump on board ship. Enormous suction is needed to suck the shingle to the surface. Gary plows up the seabed. Poor vision and strong currents make this job so dangerous. He could get trapped under a boulder. The suction of the hose is so strong that Gary repeatedly nearly loses a finger. Only linked via his breathing tube. If he pulls on it, it's a sign that his colleagues should turn off the suction engine. Safety gloves only last a day. The air for the divers is produced by a compressor on board the boat. It's easier to work with a breathing tube than with a heavy air tank. Other diamond divers work with underwater pneumatic hammers. However, Gary only puts his trust in his own muscle power and a crowbar. Due to buoyancy, the massive boulders are much lighter than on the surface. Nevertheless, this physical work demands everything from Gary. A few years ago, Gary experienced his biggest success to date. He found a diamond valued at over $100,000. During the first selection process, all stones more than 1 centimeter in diameter are filtered out and thrown overboard. Very large diamonds are rare on this section of the coast. That's why one of the men monitors the drum. If he should see a diamond, production would be stopped immediately. But that has never happened. The first exhausting diving shift of the day is over. Gary will dive again later. The conditions have gotten worse.
In the bottom it like messes you up. How far do you see? About that far.
5 days later, and Gary is at home. A tiny place next to the Atlantic Ocean. The diamond divers who have struck it lucky have moved away. Gary also wants to leave this dusty village. With his next large find, Gary wants to fulfill another lifelong dream. He wants to build his own yacht and sail around the world. What did he find in the ocean?
Nothing. Find something there, you're very lucky. You find something here, you're quite lucky, and this is just normal size stones for the thing.
Gary finds his first gem in the fine shingle. He's not allowed to make any mistakes.
Diamonds have a special glint and their facets are different to other stones. Other stones seem to be like round. Diamonds have definite facets to them, and you can see by the color. So like you see.
But this isn't the big find he had hoped for.
There's been much better times than this one. 4, 5, 6. Millionaire overnight, I don't know about that. They become pretty rich overnight sometimes. Still true, it's very rare nowadays. You become immune to depression, we're just part of it.
At least Gary's found 32 diamonds. Their value? About $10,000. Gary will keep on looking in the hopes of making a big discovery. We now leave South Africa and fly to Uttaradit in Thailand. 43-year-old Suang Kwangsri lives here with his small son, almost 200 kilometers north of Bangkok. Suang and his son have very special pets. Currently, over 500 black Thai scorpions.
ทีนี้มันก็จะไอตัวท็อกซินจะทำลายตรงจักระและจุดลมประสาทมันจะปวดตรงนี้
Despite this danger, he has created a rescue center in his house for hundreds of animals. Scorpions are part of the spider family. Swang sleeps right next to them. The scorpion lover doesn't fear touching them. He doesn't find being in the middle of a pit with them a problem. He used to hunt scorpions and sell them as a snack. Nowadays, this devout Buddhist is dedicated to protecting them. This is better karma.
จากเมื่อวานนะผมว่าไม่ประสบผลสำเร็จแต่มันก็ยังดีที่เราได้ทำแต่ผมไม่ได้ท้อนะเรามีจุดประสงค์ที่แน่นอนและชัดเจนในการทำของเราหรือกิจกรรมในการช่วยแมงป่อง
In Thailand, scorpions are considered a delicacy and they're available on every street corner in Bangkok. A fried scorpion costs the equivalent of about $3. This is big business for countless street vendors. Even tourists are tempted to try this unusual snack.
You eat the whole thing? Yeah.
You want to try too?
Oh shit! It's horrible.
Tastes like burnt chicken. Okay.
Swang's days of selling his own fried scorpions are now over. He earns less, but he's happier. However, his love of Thai scorpions doesn't protect the 43-year-old man from being stung, which happens several times a day. It's as painful as a bee sting, but Swang is immune against the poison. He simply sucks it out.
มันเป็นเรื่องข้างในแล้วเป็นเรื่องของการไว้ใจกันระหว่างผมกับแมงถ้าเราอยากอยู่เขาเราก็ต้องนอนด้วยเขาอันนี้มันเป็นสัจธรรม
To do this, he simply places the scorpion quickly into his mouth. Amazingly, it works. The scorpion calms down because it feels physical contact on all sides. This recreates the feeling of its natural hiding place in a rock crevice.
ก็รู้สึกนะแต่มันเป็นสิ่งละเอียดอ่อนคือบรรพบุรุษพาเราทำมาแบบเนี้ยแต่ทีเนี้ยเรามีสิทธิ์ที่จะคิดใหม่ไม่ทำแบบเนี้ย
Inexorably, diggers create new rice terraces in the hilly countryside. When these terraces are subsequently flooded, the scorpions living there die. Swang hopes to convince the workers.
ปกตินะ ทักทายกันปกติคืออันนี้เรื่องของเรื่องนะเขามาเฮ็ดสารคดีบ้านนั้นเนาะแล้วก็มาเบิ่งว่ามันอยู่นาอยู่ป่าแล้วก็มีผลกระทบหยังกับแมงซี่นะแต่ที่จริงมันบ่มีผลหรอกเพราะว่ามันแห้งเกินมันอยู่นะเราก็แค่มาเบิ่งแล้วก็เป็นช้างประกอบนะ
มีแหล่งอาหารสมบูรณ์อย่างที่นานะครับมันมีอาหารคือพวกจิ้งหรีดพวกเขียดตัวเล็กๆพวกเล็กๆครับมันจะไปอยู่ที่ชุ่มชื้นมากกว่า
Not a chance. The workers aren't interested in scorpions and carry on working. However, Swang doesn't give up and he returns to the building site with his son and a few friends in the night.
คือเมื่อคืนนะไอ้ไปเฮ็ดรายการที่บุญก่อนแล้วก็ที่เอาแมงมากักไว้นิดหน่อยนะว่าค่อยๆมีเทคนิคค่อยๆดึงนะมันโอเคมันมีปัญหานะ
After 3 hours, the rescuers have collected many buckets full of scorpions. However, Swang is still not content.
บ้านของเขาเพราะว่ามันทับกันมากๆไม่ดีมันจะมีผลต่อแมงแล้วก็ผมก็จะกลับมาอีกรอบนึงก็น่าจะเป็นการสาธิตขนาดนี้ครับ
Swang, the scorpion rescuer from Thailand. We also find this kind of special relationship to animals in Canada. Mark Dumas and his polar bear companion, Aggie.
Aggie's my mistress, and my wife has full knowledge of my mistress.
Mark has been sneaking cuddles with his polar bear for the last 18 years. The Canadian lives with his wife Dawn, his assistant Kyle, and Aggie in a small town near Vancouver.
She really likes me, and she gets very jealous of other people when they're around me, so I have to be very aware of that. It's just a really great bond that the two of us have for one another.
It's no surprise that Mark is an animal trainer for films. He bottle-fed Aggie and in the process gained her trust. Aggie already learnt as a baby that Mark protects her and she's safe with him. Today, this polar bear is a film star and even has her own Facebook page. She'll stand on her hind legs or lay down on command, the result of years of training. However, this relationship has its dangers. Up to 2.5 meters long and weighing up to 300 kilos, polar bears are one of the most dangerous bears in the world. A single blow with the paw can kill. That's why his wife Dawn and assistant Kyle are there to ensure his safety. The most important rule:
Dawn is the lady that you talk to instead of talking to me when we're with Aggie.
And if she hears another person, especially another female, yell out there towards him, she develops an animosity towards you because you are not allowed to yell towards her man's direction.
And we experience Aggie's jealousy close up.
She's almost like in a needy mood, not necessarily a loving mood.
Aggie doesn't like it at all that Mark talks to us.
Yeah, she's not really relaxed. She's coming over to check you guys out.
Mark tries to remain calm, but the situation is awkward.
We live by Aggie's rules. She has her rules, and we try not to push the rules too far.
Relief. Aggie doesn't regard our camera team as a threat. Once again, she focuses her attention solely on Mark. They both think bathing is the best thing ever. Together, of course. But for Mark, this is particularly dangerous.
You know, if she does take you down to the bottom, she doesn't know that. So she's just playing with you. You know, she could easily drown you.
Quite simply, Mark and Aggie have a special relationship. From Canada, the journey continues to Italy. We are with the Gibbon team in the Italian Dolomites. There, slackliners Flo, Jordan and Helmar are looking for a suitable spot for a first ascent.
Der Fels sieht gut aus von hier oben auf beiden Seiten. Und es ist einfach zum Runterkommen. Wir können uns einfach abseilen und auf der Seite das Spannsystem anlegen.
Their first goal, to stretch a highline between two mountains, is really something. To do this, they have to abseil down both cliffs so that they attach climbing anchors at points positioned preferably at the same height. They later want to stretch the line across the abyss using these anchors. Their equipment mainly consists of climbing equipment, because if you want to highline, you need to be able to climb first. The young men organize the setup.
Oh, yes.
The dangers are always an issue at such heights.
Ja, eigentlich schon der Respekt vor der Höhe, weil jetzt wird es zum ersten Mal ernst und wir müssen halt über die Kante, wir müssen dem Material vertrauen und ja, da hat man schon erstmal wieder ein bisschen Angst.
However, Helmar doesn't step over the edge just yet.
Also für den Aufbau stört der Regen nichts, weil der tut das Equipment nicht schwächen oder sowas, das ist überhaupt kein Problem. Nur der Fels wird nass und dadurch wird es rutschig.
The young men don't take the risk and stop work. A little later, the sun comes out. Time to set up.
Wir haben gerade Flächen gefunden, wir konnten jetzt 3 Haken in den richtigen Abständen setzen, so wie wir es brauchen, um später Schlingen zu legen. Und ja, ist perfekt eigentlich.
Perfectly positioned anchors are the most important thing at this type of height. The young men even go so far as removing any stony remnants from the holes by using a straw and toothbrush. Only then can the anchors be screwed in safely and tightly enough. 2 of the anchors are used to support the main slackline, while the others support the backup line.
Es ist alles einfach super kompakt. Wir haben 3 Haken gesetzt in guten Abständen, sodass wir es nachher gut mit einer Schlinge verbinden können, um so eine Art Kräftedreieck aufzubauen.
This is exactly what lies ahead of Jason on the other side. He's still looking for a suitable rock where he can attach his anchors. Because only solid rock can securely hold the slackline construction later. Jordan works alone on the cliff. That's much more demanding and difficult. But he's the most experienced and oldest of the three.
Jetzt bringen wir alles rüber und dann machen wir einfach fest und dann für heute fertig.
Incidentally, slackliners don't need permission from the authorities. Highlining in the mountains is so rarely done that it's not regulated. Nevertheless, the three young highliners are meticulously careful about not making any mistakes, because at this height, a fall would be lethal without any safety harness. The next day, Flo explains his fascination with first ascents.
Dass ich der Erste bin, der vielleicht sowas macht und dass ich neue Sachen erkunden muss. Und vor allem ist aber auch, dass man was zusammen macht und was Schweres zusammen macht.
But first of all, the line needs to be rigged. What's arduous on the ground is extremely hard work at a height of 300 meters.
Also wir schnicken jetzt und der gewinnt, darf als erstes die Highline begehen. Schnick, schnack,
What's
schnuck.
special, whoever goes on the line first is allowed to name the spot.
Yeah. Ja, also ich freue mich ziemlich, weil das ist eine ziemlich krasse Line. Die ist ja ziemlich hoch, ziemlich lang. Und ich habe noch nicht so viele Erstbegehungen und es wird ein ziemlich cooler Moment, glaube ich, wenn ich die geschafft habe.
Flo, the winner, is allowed to cross first. But that also means that he has to painstakingly cross over to the other side, hand over hand, in order to connect the backup line with the slack line, again and again, every few centimeters along. If the two lines stayed unconnected next to each other, it would interfere too much when walking. Flo would only be able to focus with difficulty and thus would hardly be able to safely take any steps. His strategy for the first ascent.
Also ich schaue ans Ende von der Line und der Rest sollte von selber klappen. Für arg viel mehr kann ich nicht achten. Ja, ich bin ziemlich arg aufgeregt, habe auch ein bisschen Angst und bin jetzt ziemlich gespannt, wie es läuft.
About 35 meters lie ahead of the 20-year-old. A last safety check, a deep breath, and then he starts. However, Flo slips when standing up. Nevertheless, nothing can really happen to the highliner. The reason? The sophisticated safety system. On each side, the young men have set up 3 anchors, which are used to attach the slack line and the backup line independently from each other. After taping the lines together, the highline is doubly secured to the carabiners. Flo now needs to find the necessary composure. On the one hand, he's extremely concentrated. On the other, he's extremely tense and nervous. Flo manages the start. He's about 1/3 of the way. Over halfway. The last few meters take the longest. Flo stops, time and time again, to balance on one leg. The first ascent is perfect. Flo reaches the end of the line, pumped up with adrenaline and endorphins.
Ja, ist wohl die Droge, die man braucht oder die ich brauche. Ja, mir geht's ziemlich gut jetzt. Ich bin zufrieden. Ich könnte jetzt abbauen und nach Hause gehen. Das ist perfekt einfach.
His friends think so too. Mavericks Unlimited. The thrill of travel, wild adventure, and big machines on this episode of Mavericks Unlimited. We are visiting the most daring cliff divers in Mexico. They jump from cliffs as high as 35 meters and risk their lives. What's more, this tower is 324 meters high, and this extreme climber will climb it without safety devices. But some problems arise and put him at a deadly risk. And the snake hunters from India. In order to get the venom, they catch the world's most poisonous snakes with their bare hands. All of this now on Mavericks Unlimited. We start off in Mexico, or to be precise, in Acapulco at the Mexican west coast. 13 kilometers of sandy beaches, about 30 degrees Celsius the whole year round. A resort right at the Pacific Ocean, popular among US Americans as well as among wealthy locals. A highlight for visitors from around the whole world are the professional cliff divers of Acapulco. Every day, enthusiastic spectators pay an entrance fee to applaud the death-defying men. 5 times a day, the so-called clavadistas profesionales de la quebrada dive down from as high up as 35 meters. That is more or less the height of a 10-story building. It's noon at the Quebrada, the most famous rock in Acapulco. The divers are preparing for the first show of the day. This young man wants to follow in their footsteps. 20-year-old Jorge Ramirez. His goal, for the first time, to dive from a height of 35 meters. Before each jump, the divers ask for the Virgin Guadalupe's protection. She is the Mexican patron saint.
Es una tradición familiar que la heredé de mi abuelo, mi padre, y ahora me toca a mí hacerlo. Es por eso que estoy aquí y porque me apasiona este deporte.
A dangerous passion. Allegedly, no one has died yet, but there are many injuries every day. Burst eardrums are an occupational hazard. Broken bones and dyspnea, normality. Because the water is as solid as rock when you hit it. But no reason for Jorge to give up on his dream.
Claro que sí. Tengo un poco de miedo y nervios. Después de salto todo es libertad.
Rock after rock, Jorge has come closer to his dream. To date, he has only dived from a height of 25 meters. These are meant to be his last jumps from this height. Tomorrow, he will risk diving from all the way up. Common sense speaks against this undertaking because the conditions are more than just unfavorable.
El principal problema que tenemos nosotros al lanzarnos de ahí es que son dos cosas. Uno, que el risco no está así verticalmente hablando, sino que está declinado. Eso hace que nosotros tengamos que impulsarnos y en el agua hay rocas que salen donde podemos caer. Así que lo que nosotros buscamos es impulsarnos lo más posible para cuando llegue una ola como la que está entrando, viene el canal. Justo en ese punto es donde debemos de lanzarnos, ya que el canal es bajo.
That's why the clavadistas are so-called death jumpers. Firstly, the spot they must hit is only about 4 meters wide, and secondly, it all depends on how far out they can jump. Only a few centimeters short and they hit one of the sharp rocks. And that's not all. The precise moment is essential for survival. The water is only 3 meters deep here. The divers must perform a rebound immediately after hitting the water in order to avoid the reef. In spite of, or maybe even because of the risks involved, the cliff divers are world famous. Miguel Sanchez, a professional diver himself, knows why Jorge wants to become a cliff diver.
Que nos gana el miedo. Siempre hay miedo, todo el tiempo. Pero con cada clavado ganamos un poco más de confianza, ganamos un poco más de entrega a esto y de amor más que nada a este trabajo, porque la verdad es bonito, es agradable cuando la gente sale, te aplaude. Eso es la mayor ganancia que tenemos nosotros, ser reconocidos por algo que te gusta. Eso es lo mejor de mi trabajo.
Even more important than the applause is the entrance fee the audience pays. 40 pesos per person, amounting to the equivalent of a good $2. According to legend, 100 years ago, a fisherman jumped from the quebrada in order to disentangle his net from a rock and invented cliff diving. Up to this day, the divers still jump from that same spot. But now the divers have organized themselves into a club. All the revenues go into a joint account. They divide up the tips between them, but visitor numbers are declining. The divers earn between $70 and $540 a month, about $220 less than the average Mexican income. The big day has arrived. Word of a rookie taking part has spread quickly. Our divers put on an especially good show today. The thrill is higher. For the other men, it's business as usual, diving according to schedule. Almost all of them have known each other since childhood. 90% of the clavadistas are third or fourth generation divers. While the men celebrate themselves, Jorge is looking for last tips and hints.
Siento un poco de nervios y ansias por ya tirarme, pero espero que salga bien todo esto. Estoy preparado.
But first, it's the professionals' turn. Cliff diving has even become Olympic in the meantime. But no one dares to do what the original divers from Acapulco do. Dive into the water head first from a height of up to 35 meters. The top mark of other divers from around the world is 27 meters. However, they dive feet first only. Especially risky, the so-called Hollandesa, the 1.5 turn backflip. Now Jorge. Naturally, the next generation doesn't want to miss out on this. The little girl is up there for the first time. Could she imagine to one day also jump from up here?
No.
But Jorge has no choice. He's the highlight of the show. The last few moments belong to him only. He has watched the pros' routine for more than 1,000 times, which helps him now. Stretch, kneel down, pray, jump. Whatever the men whisper to their patron remains a secret. But it's obvious what Jorge needs at this moment. A lot of courage and good luck.
Entonces, justo antes de lanzarme es donde pasa la mayor concentración. Escucho el sonido del mar, cómo el viento toca mi piel, cómo la gente aplaude, hasta el flash de una fotografía. Se vuelve ese momento muy sensitivo para nuestro cuerpo.
Conditions are tough today. There is a strong wind. The waves come at irregular intervals. Jorge raises his arms, making the official sign for the others before the jump. But he hesitates, interrupts, then makes a fresh start. Jorge dives into the water almost vertically at a speed of up to 90 kilometers an hour, accelerating faster than a racing car. The clash is more than 9 times stronger than that from a 10-meter diving board. The dive went smoothly, but is he okay?
Muchos nervios y desesperación, ya quería salir. Ya me había cansado. No vienen las olas, no habían llegado las olas. Se tendió el mar hasta que llegó alguna, pero ya salí con bien, gracias a Dios. Ah, acabado, por fin.
20-year-old Jorge is now officially one of the famous Acapulco cliff divers. From Mexico, we go to Doha, the capital of Qatar. One man, one tower, one mission. Never before has anyone climbed this facade. 318 meters high, no safety devices, extreme desert winds, and fast too. Alain Robert wants to climb up and set a new world record within just 3 hours. He'll only have one attempt. If he falls, he dies. Arrival at the Torch Doha. For the first time, Alain sees the tower from close up. The flame-shaped building was constructed as the emblem of the Asian Games in 2006. Afterwards, the flame was transformed into a hotel. 318 meters in height, it is one of the highest buildings in Qatar. Its facade consists of 3,452 single elements. The very next morning, Alain wants to explore the skyscraper for the first time. He is trying to figure out the appropriate climbing technique. His original idea to use the grid as a sort of ladder is obviously not going to work.
I can also doing it this way, but it's too slim for my climbing shoes. So I need to use the crack, and I need to jam my my foot. It's just painful. It's a bit like nails. My feet, they are nearly blocked inside it. Sometimes I am having difficulties to remove it. I can feel that it grabs my lace, and it's not so easy in that sense.
Alain has to pull through with this painful procedure for the entire 320 meters. Even though he uses his legs to press himself against the facade, he can't push his feet too deep into the fissures because pulling them out would need a lot of strength. If he falls into a void. It has happened before. The Frenchman has had 7 falls over the past 30 years. Before climbing a building, Alain must always take a close look at the roof in order to ensure that there is a safe exit. If Alain doesn't have a permit, as with this building, he rents a helicopter to view the building from above. Not every skyscraper is climbable from facade to roof in just one go. Even if it sounds a bit esoteric for non-climbers, Alain is trying to get a feel for the facade. He needs to know how much weight he can place on the grid at each point. His problem here? The construction is extremely unstable and shaky.
It's a bit scary because it moves a lot. Suddenly, you are alive, and then you are still alive on the backside, but it's kind of a weird feeling.
Alain has underestimated the facade. He hesitates.
Suddenly, there is 300 meters below, and it reminds you that you better be prepared mentally, being focused, because you can't afford to do even one single mistake.
The next day, in 5 hours, it's time to go. The problem? The wind has stirred up sand, which is all over the facade. Alain asks for industrial climbers to clean the grid so he can find a proper grip, if time still allows. Thousands of spectators have arrived in the meantime. They want to witness a live experience of the attempt at a safety device-free facade climbing record. But Alain is also very worried about something else. The climber only noticed these huge LED signs last night. He can't get by these signs since there is nothing there to hold on to. His problem? While they are clearly noticeable at night, they are almost invisible in daytime, and no one from the hotel can tell him exactly where they're situated. Everyone is desperately looking for binoculars, and Alain is nervous.
I still didn't get the fucking binocular. I did ask yesterday, still wanted to check from the bottom. And there is too much LEDs, then I can't slide my finger anymore.
It becomes clear that Alain is not just some crazy joker who carelessly puts his life at risk. He does fear for his life too.
I slept not much. Actually, I'm sleepy, but I cannot sleep. I am already a bit nervous now.
It's his riskiest descent ever. Because the building is shaped like a torch, Alain will almost be climbing upside down from the middle onwards. the wind is steadily picking up. Nevertheless, it's time to get started. 8,000 more holds to reach the roof. Climbing without the slightest safety measure, just climbing boots and chalk. The hotel management have drawn up 5 contracts in which Alain assigns his legal claims in the case of his death. Alain notices right from the start that his fingers get stuck between the grid bars. His fingers are taped, but even so, the friction when pulling them out is unexpectedly excessive. After only 30 meters, his coach has to renew the tapings from an intermediate story. If Alain injures his hands, he doesn't stand a chance anymore, because the Frenchman is climbing without a rope from which he could abseil in the case of an injury. He has now climbed 1/3, but more than 200 meters still lie ahead of him. Soon, Alain will climb past the pool. That's when the difficult part begins. The overhang. From here onwards, the building becomes narrower and overhanging. Alain pauses to gather his strength for the most challenging part of the climb. From down beneath, each of his movements is watched closely. Now, Alain must once again test how to distribute his weight on the overhanging grid. Because if he puts too much weight on one of the grid elements, it breaks loose. Before each hold, Alain makes a step to the side. He stabilizes the grid by pressing his foot against it and hereby also keeps his balance. Still 182 meters to go. One movement flows into the next, as accurately fitting as the pieces of a puzzle. The older Alain gets, the higher the risk of his sinews snapping. His fingers are sore. The facade is getting to him. The wind is his enemy. The grid is shaking. Alain is unsure which hold to grab next. If the bar happens to be a loose one, he'll fall 190 meters. He doesn't trust a rope with his life. He trusts only his own fingertips. They arduously pull him up in 20-centimeter steps. Alain is deeply drawn into his own vertical world.
You know, I am like any other human being, meaning that I am afraid of dying. There is something even more frightening for me, it's living a boring life. I did so many stuff by climbing in Verdun or many other places, and then I started to feel that I was really flirting in between life and death. I knew that I wouldn't be able to go any further, and then this is exactly at the same time as I have shifted to Berlin.
To climb 318 meters is an act of extreme strength and endurance. Good climbers manage 40 meters maximum. Alain is having a weak moment. He is losing his strength. He's been repeating the exact same movement for over an hour now. His body threatens to over-acidify. He's finally reached the 50th floor. There is no grid here, so Alain can take a short rest. He calls his coach for calories and energy drinks. The last 20 meters, unsheltered from the wind, are waiting for Alain. They are the most shaky ones. Just a few meters to the top. Enormous winds. Extreme overhang. A sandy facade, a shaky grid. Climbing as a borderline experience. The stakes are at maximum level. His own life.
For 1 or 2 hours, your life was a little bit on standby. You are still alive, but you could be dead within a few seconds.
The decisive hold. After 1 hour and 33 minutes, Alain has made it. He secured the new record.
It's a fantastic feeling because it's a bit like starting a brand new life. Yeah, you feel like you're reborn.
A new beginning at a height of 318 meters. From here to India. Here in southern India, people have been catching snakes for centuries, often barefooted, armed only with a pole. Just like today, a dangerous job. Nitan is one of them and belongs to the Irula tribe.
அதாவது வந்து இதில் வந்து பில்லெல்லாம் லைட்டாக ஒதுக்கிட்டு அப்படியே கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமாக சேர்ந்து வச்சுன்னு போயிருக்கோம். அதை வச்சு தான் கண்டுபிடிக்கிறேன். இது இப்போ இந்த வழியில் போயிருக்கு. வழி அதாவது பில்லு ஒதுங்கி இருக்கு. இப்போ இந்த வழியாக போயிருக்கு. இதை இங்கே இந்த பார்த்தா இங்கே தான் இருக்கும். இங்கே தான் இருக்கும்.
Most snakes are shy and only become aggressive if they feel cornered. Nitan believes the snake to be in this hole. His plan, to dig it out. Sounds dangerous.
ரொம்ப ஆபத்தானது தான். ரொம்ப ஆபத்தானதாக இருந்தாலும் நாங்கள் பரம்பரையாக செய்யறதுனால எங்களுக்கு இதே தொழில் தான். அப்பப்போ இதை செஞ்சுனே வரோம்.
நாங்கள் காட்டில் இருந்து எங்கள் 12 வகை மூலிகை எடுத்து அதை எல்லாத்தையும் இடித்து மிக்ஸ் பண்ணி வச்சுப்போம். அது கடிச்ச உடனே அந்த மூலிகையான மருந்து சாப்பிட்டோம்னா அந்த விவசாயம் முறிஞ்சிடும்.
What kind of people lead such a life? The Arulas once lived in the jungle, indigenous people. Today they are outcasts, belonging to the lowest caste of the untouchables. The Arulas live in huts on the fringes of society, with no power supply or running water. Even if they are outcast in India, many people owe their lives to the Arulas, because the venom of the snake constitutes the vital part of the serum that is essential for survival.
எந்த வழியில் இருக்குதான்னு விட்டு பார்த்தா இந்த கோல் வந்து இது மாதிரி ஆடும். அதை வச்சு நாங்கள் கண்டுபிடிப்போம்.
But how will he manage to get it out of the hole without being bitten? All of a sudden, Nitan holds the end of a tail in his hands. He pulls and pulls. It really is a snake, but it's resisting. Nitan wants to tire it out, and after 5 minutes of heavy work, one pull and... Cobra! It appears to be a king cobra. The hunters are given a reward for each poisonous snake. It helps them buy the food they don't find in the jungle.
அதாவது ஃபஸ்ட்டு வாழை பிடிப்போம். வாழை பிடிச்சி அப்படியே லைட்டாக தலை ஓரம் எடுத்துன்னு போயிட்டு அந்த தமுறால் அமுத்துவோம். அமுத்தி உடனே கையால் பிடிச்சிப்போம். இது வந்து தண்ணி பகுதியில் ஜாஸ்தியாக வாழும். தண்ணி பகுதியில்னா தண்ணி ஓரத்தில் வந்தால் உடனே லப்புன்னு தலையை பிடிக்க வேண்டியது அப்படியே கையில்.
Arulas traditionally ate snakes, but nowadays that is against the law. Environmental protection. The second snake tries to escape. To stop it from hiding, the men corner it with their poles. Quick as a flash, Nitan grabs the snake by the tail so it can't defend itself. But this snake is bigger and stronger than the first. So Nitan uses a simple trick. This way, the reptile becomes dizzy. The snake is disoriented, and Nitan can take it by the head without any risk. It's as thick as an arm and almost 3 meters long. But sadly today won't be payday. They won't be getting their aspired reward. It turns out the snakes are harmless rat snakes. They look very similar to king cobras and are therefore often caught and killed solely due to fear. The venomous snakes end up here in the snake care center. The difference to a rat snake: if a cobra gets aggressive, a neck frill protrudes, as you can see here. The Arulas started this care center with the help of bank loans. This is where the snake serum is extracted and sold with profit.
It's very hungry when the body touch it, when the close 2 feet, when the jumping bite. 3 hours timing, madam. Nice, when the bite, when the 3 hours.
Milking is a dangerous job. Today, about 50,000 Indians die each year of snake bites. Snakes only bite when they feel threatened. For example, if a human being tries to extract the venom. Here, a chain viper, one of India's most common venomous snakes, is being milked. The jaw is opened carefully, which causes a lockjaw. A leather cloth spread across the glass serves as a bite dummy. The venom drips from the tooth into the flask. The snake venom milking station is the only one of its kind in India where the animals aren't killed because the snakes are holy to the Arula. The reptiles are weighed, marked, and kept in clay pots for 3 weeks, after which they're set free again. The snake hunters of India, a dangerous job which is saving lives. Mavericks Unlimited. The thrill of travel, wild adventure, and big machines. On this episode of Mavericks Unlimited, they risk their lives for the adrenaline kick. Roofers. We visit some of them in the roofer stronghold, Moscow, and together with them, we climb onto a 200-meter-high antenna mast, just for the kick of it and a good photograph. What's more, death is just around the corner. We highlight one of the world's most dangerous professions, alligator hunting in Louisiana's marsh districts. Also, a man who tries to hold out in an ice cube for 1 hour without protective clothing at around 0 degrees Celsius. Now on Mavericks Unlimited. We're in the Russian capital, Moscow. The city is the unofficial center of the so-called roofing scene. We have an appointment with a photographer who himself is a star in the roofing scene. Marat and his friends are all around 20 years old and have been climbing roofs in Moscow for a couple of years. Thanks to these images, Marat is one of the best-known roofers in the world today. He's 22 and a law student. He knows exactly what he wants.
Quite boring to obey the rules of the society, and I think it may be interesting to break your psychological barrier and to do something you never did, and it's really interesting.
Aisha is also drawn to the roofs. More and more women are fascinated by the thrill.
When I firstly become to the roof, it's so interesting day in my life, when my life was changed very much.
What counts is the special kick they get out of stretching the bounds of legality together. It's not about what clothes they wear or what kind of music they listen to.
There are hipsters, there are like rappers, maybe there are anywhere just normal guys who dress casually. No one cares, we just enjoy the views.
After theory lessons in the cafe, practice follows. The roofers are going to climb onto the roof of a building and show us just how they manage to get on people's roofs. Their destination, a typical Moscow building. Not very high, but the only option in this kind of bad weather. Climbing higher roofs would be too slippery and dangerous. The roofers have many little tricks to remain undetected.
So if you have something in your pockets, just release it. Okay. Because we will penetrate inside through the small hole.
Moscow's inhabitants have become very watchful over the last years.
So it's typical for the red doors to be protected with a keypad and to open the door and to face the challenge. We have to be prepared. So I have the special key which may open the door. I will check it. So yeah, it's open.
The electric general keys are very sought after in roofer circles and are passed on underhand. Marat doesn't want to disclose his sources. After the lift, the next challenge is awaiting them. A grid is blocking the ascent. The only way to reach the roof is by slipping through a small hole. Other roofers have sawn into the staircase. Even the slightest sound could alarm the inhabitants. And that's when it happens. As Aisha is crawling through the hole, a tenant raises an alarm.
Штопор, а вдруг что-то будет на нашу голову?
Меня можешь обыскать.
Зачем я тебя?
The roofers flee upwards. They would never be able to make it past the tenant fast enough through the narrow hole. She is now threatening Marat with the police. He is still down below. The roof is their only escape route. The other three can only hope she hasn't noticed that they're already up on the roof. Locked up on a roof with no fire escape. That's one of the risks these young Russian roofers just love to take. In the meantime, Marat and Aisha have reached another rooftop through the neighboring staircase, but they discover they've been cut off from the others. At least they find time to take a good look around the area, and it's obvious why Moscow of all cities is the capital of the roofer community.
Actually, this is like an encyclopedia of Moscow roofing, because we have been to that tower, to almost whole Moscow city. We've been to several houses that way that you can see. And here stands this Gothic Minister of Foreign Affairs that was never conquered, and it is still awaiting for its hero.
Apart from many high roofs with a great view, Moscow has more important things on offer for roofers.
We do not have tough and severe legislation which punish the roofers. And you know the phrase crazy Russians. It's a part of our mentality to be a little bit mad.
It may be crazy, but it's not a political issue. That's why the government leaves the roofers alone, as opposed to regime-critical movements such as Pussy Riot. As long as Marat and Dima don't destroy private property, they can count on being treated lightly when climbing onto roofs. While the two leave the roof through the attic, the others sneak through the staircase, after having had to wait on the roof for 2 long hours. The next morning, they climb up even higher. They show us the entry test for all Russian roofers. Dima and his friends pick us up at the city center early in the morning. Destination Elektrostadt. It's a suburb of Moscow. In the scene, it stands for euphoria and reckless trials of courage. Marat has experienced quite a few things up here.
It was dangerous and I think difficult, but he did it for an amazing photo. He had to be extremely careful because he may fall down, because you see this edge is very thin, and one wrong step and he will fall.
The antenna masts are visible from far away. From the parking lot, it's another half hour on foot through a forest. Trespassing is actually strictly forbidden, but only a single watchman watches over the whole forest and doesn't pose any real threat. The tower is in fact an old antenna mast, built in 1930 under the regime of the Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin, and shut down many years ago. Since then, it's been rusting away. Climbing is strictly forbidden, and it's dangerous too. Roofing is life-threatening. That's why it's absolutely not meant to be copied. Marat goes first. The experienced roofer has made the climb 5 times already. To deter tower tourists, the first 15 meters of ladder have been removed. The cold, rusty steel makes it difficult for the roofers. To get all the way up, you have to climb 200 meters. Each step is a small pull-up. Whoever doesn't have the right technique and well-trained arms will soon reach their limit. They can save energy by using their feet to push off, but it's dangerous in the narrow ladder shaft.
We'll use our legs, like do it stronger.
Ow! My knee! Fuck!
It takes trained roofers like Marat and Dima about half an hour to get to the top. Not such a good idea if you're afraid of heights.
Oh God.
Every 20 meters, there's a little steel platform to take a rest. But from its fringes, it goes down vertically. Danger is all around here. With each step, it gets colder and windier. The roofers leave everyday life behind and concentrate on the more important things, such as survival. 215 meters above the Russian birch forest, on top of a delicate antenna mast, in icy cold and strong winds, a very special moment for the roofers.
It means totally happiness. That's what it is. And freedom. Just endless freedom. I am here by myself alone with the sky. I feel this great space. That's what it is.
A great view and a huge rush of adrenaline for the roofers. But up here, even the tiniest misstep can have deadly consequences. Off we go to Henderson in southern Louisiana. The wetlands, the greatest marsh district of the USA, ruled by alligators. Not hundreds, not thousands, but 2 million. And the number is increasing. One man is trying to stop this from happening. James Reggie. He's not the youngest anymore, but at the age of 70, he's still as determined as ever. A hunting pioneer, over the past 50 years, James has dedicated his life to one purpose: hunting alligators. At more than 30 degrees Celsius and sticky humidity, why does a man of his age still do this to himself?
Since I've been doing this, it's you know, I've never wanted to do nothing else. I think it's a white bird roosting in the trees, just to get their attention. An alligator, that's not very hard for an alligator to reach up and grab. Most of the time, whenever they grab it, it's whatever's in it is between their jaws.
Including the hook. The meat quickly turns into an odorant alligator snack at 30 degrees Celsius. Normally, one is hooked within 24 hours. Now it's time for the warhorse to check on yesterday's traps. And if all goes well, that also means killing the alligator before it kills him. After 48 years of service, hunting legend James pretty much knows what he's doing. But sometimes, timing seems to be a problem for him, though. His angry catch also notices the little collision at the riverbank. Reggie and the alligator, face to face. Could be a big specimen, so the veteran rolls out his heavy artillery. But that needs to be loaded into the magazine first.
All right, let's play, sport.
James wants to pull the line to the surface along with the catch. He knows the alligator remains still for a long time and then strikes as quick as a flash. James is left to his reflexes and firepower. A shot at close range. Brutal, but his only chance considering the extremely thick skull.
I pull them up and try to shoot them and kill them as humanely as possible and quickly as possible. I don't I don't play with them.
The first man versus alligator fight is over. In the 21st century, right in the middle of the USA, this looks like an archaic relic of the Wild West. Rough and brutal. But men like James say it's the only way to control the situation. Even now, he needs to be on his guard, check if the alligator's extremities make a last twitch, and then haul it into the boat. More than 200 kilograms, which stretch James to his limits once again. 4 weeks of hunting season are almost over, and in moments like these, James can feel every single slain alligator in his bones. Now to business. The veteran marks the end of the tale with a badge, more or less Louisiana's seal of quality. The state's hunting quota, about 40,000 alligators, which is exactly the number of badges that go to the landowners, $4 apiece. They entrust their exterminator, and James has a whopping 600 assignments.
We got alligators in places that people never dreamed. The UL College, I've caught 3 of them on the campus. It's just on the highways, especially during the breeding season, the big alligators will start moving around.
Alligator hunting, a permanent struggle for ecological balance. James's job is similar to that of a ranger's, to keep the stock at an agreeable level, for the good of man and alligator. At the beginning of the 60s, poachers almost exterminated the alligators. At the last moment, the government intervened. Today, unauthorized hunters pay a fine of hundreds of dollars and may even be sentenced to prison. De facto, James hasn't yet earned a single penny today. The state grants the license, the swamp owners the mandate, but neither of them pays money. James makes a turnover only by selling the animals, and the alligator slaughterhouse wants the meat as fresh as possible.
Everything's got to be accounted for. At the end of the year, every one of these tags got to be accounted for. And if they're not, they want to know where they're at. And if I drop one in the water, I got to go get it.
At first sight, the alligator business seems strange, but it is supervised by the state and absolutely legal. The butchers measure the exact value, not by weight or appearance, but by length. 1 meter is worth $76 for James. So for a 4-meter alligator, he receives around $300. The most valuable part, the alligator's skin.
They're going to skin them, fillet the meat, pack it up, and send it to wherever it goes to where it's going to be sold. Shoes, belts, wallets, whatever.
Belts worth $1,000 or more. Each season is $1 million business. Without it, the swamp probably wouldn't exist anymore. At daybreak, the catch-up race in the wetlands begins. Beneath the water surface hides a much sought-after hidden treasure, mineral oil. But in order to approach it, everything would have to be dried out. The $1 million revenues would be gone, for the state too. That's probably the only reason why the swamp still exists. James is back on the hunt. There are supposed to be some alligators here too. Time for the by now familiar docking maneuver.
All right, sweetheart, let's dance.
Dancing with a Mississippi alligator is a dance with the second strongest jaw in the world. It comes right after the white shark's jaw. Bite force, a ton per square centimeter. No bone could withstand this. But regardless of that, James is in a hurry.
It's just easy to handle. It's dangerous because he got mad.
And despite hitting a bullseye, it still is. The pistol's penetrating power was too weak for the massive skull. The second bullet penetrates. But again, as is almost always the case, the danger is not over yet. James strictly sticks to his rules. First, press the jaw together with all your strength. Then, turn it around as fast as possible. Even though the reptile is dead, the danger of a last attack is always present. Almost as if the alligator is able to come back to life.
He's a reptile, just like a lizard or a frog or anything else. Actually, he's not going to bite you. Just the nerves are going to, is what's going to hurt.
James has experienced all of this firsthand. That's why he stays away for as long as possible. He has enough scars already, he says. But catches, on the other hand, he can never get enough of.
I mean, I'm 70 years old, and you know, people ask me when am I going to retire? And why retire?
Apparently, James wants to risk his life for many more years in the vastness of Louisiana's marsh districts. From the USA, we move on to Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Here, we meet Wim Hof. He seems to be able to deal well with the cold. How else could he be able to stand barefoot in the snow? What's his secret?
Die besondere Eigenschaft, die ich habe, ist nur Trainierung. Jeder hat es.
That's it? Through training alone, a human being is able to resist the cold. Is that really possible? We'll see. We've prepared an experiment. On Amsterdam's beachfront, temperatures are around 0 degrees. We want to find out if Wim Hof is able to stand sub-zero temperatures in the ice. Impossible from a medical point of view, but Wim Hof wants to prove to us he is able to perform this superhuman act at any time without any supporting means. We need 600 kilos of ice cubes for this, enough to cover a man in ice from head to toe. Wim Hof will be standing in this plexiglass container covered in ice up to his throat. The thermometer verifies our ice is real ice. It's getting serious for Wim, and in this case, that means really cold. At 0 degrees outside temperature, the Iceman sets about his business. He's not allowed to wear protective clothing. There is no heating, nothing to warm him. Wim steps into the ice container without any kind of preparation.
Adrenalin ist dort, normal. Ruhe, ich habe Kontrolle, Beherrschung. Maar ook een beetje Spaß. Muss da auch sein. Aber keine Angst. Angst nicht. Angst ist schon hinterlassen worden.
In order to convince us, Wim must resist the ice for at least an hour. It takes 10 minutes to fill the container. Our clock only starts ticking after the container has been filled up. Wim is wearing no warming clothes. His body is directly exposed to the cold.
Gut. Nein, das ist gut so. Gut.
The first few minutes in the ice, Wim shows no signs of quivering or any cold-related reactions. The Iceman doesn't show any sign of weakness even after 7 minutes. A normal person would have passed out long ago, but the Dutchman stays cool.
Am Anfang ist es schwieriger. Wenn einmal alles voll ist, akklimatisiere ich gut und da ist eine Konstante und dann ist es nicht mehr schwierig. Auf diesem Moment, ich glaube eine Viertelstunde haben wir schon gehabt, so etwas, ich fühle mich warm.
A normal person would be just short of a collapse. Not so for Wim Hof. He remains standing up in the icy cold. seemingly without any problems. 40 minutes have passed. No frostbite or signs of weakness from Vim. He is fully conscious. Proof? A short chat with passers-by. No problem. Impressive.
He must be a hero. Because it's cold outside. It's 0 degrees. And he stands there for more than 1 hour. For more than 1 hour, isn't it?
The record is 1 hour 43 minutes.
Oh. And we have all clothes because it's cold. So he's a hero, don't you think so?
Vim has proven his extraordinary abilities. After 1 hour, we decide to end the experiment. We have seen enough. The Dutchman has resisted the cold. The sheer superhuman experiment was an easy exercise for him, although it's not so easy for him to climb out of the cube. The plexiglass compresses the ice, and only after the panels have been removed can Vim push the ice aside. He doesn't even have to warm himself up. He just puts his clothes back on, as if nothing has happened. After staying 1 hour in the ice, wearing almost no clothes. Mavericks Unlimited. The thrill of travel, wild adventure and big machines on this episode of Mavericks Unlimited. A man balances on a tightrope just 18 millimeters thick at a height of 3,500 meters. A deep abyss is directly below him, and he's not even secured. We'll show his world record attempt. In addition, extreme donut drifts. We'll meet a man who can make his car spin around once every second, more than 20 times in a row. And hunting anacondas. This man hunts these large snakes in Venezuela, wading through the swamp barefoot. All this now on Mavericks Unlimited. We're in the middle of the Alps, close to St. Moritz. Extreme athlete Freddie Nock wants to set a new world record. He plans to walk blindly on a thin steel tightrope without any safeguard. His colleagues laboriously try to fix the tightrope into position on the inaccessible mountain.
Ist schon riskant, was die Leute da machen. Man muss denen voll vertrauen natürlich.
But after they've finished, the tightrope still swings too much. Therefore, it needs to be tightened. It's stretched using 6 tons. 3 times this amount is actually needed. But that kind of force could crack the rock and cause an avalanche. Freddie wants to break the triple world record in this higher alpine region at an altitude of 3,500 meters. He intends to walk blindly 350 meters along the highest tightrope walk over the deepest drop. That means an altitude difference of 50 meters and an incline of 14%. At its highest point, the tightrope is almost 1,000 meters above the ground. Freddie attempts his first test run. This time he's secured. However, the swinging of the tightrope is not his only problem. It also twists beneath his feet, which would be fatal during a blind record attempt.
Jetzt fängt es an zu schwingen. Das ist schon sehr viel jetzt, ne? Ist zu locker. Ist zu locker zu gehen, ne?
Nonetheless, using any safeguards during the actual record attempt is not an option for this son of a circus family.
Ganz einfach, ich vertraue dem Zeug nicht. Meine Eltern, meine Großeltern haben immer gesagt, wir müssen uns auf uns verlassen. Also als kleiner Junge schon habe ich das eingeprägt. Und für mich ist das ein riesen Kick, da über dieses Tal zu laufen, ungesichert.
Freddie is intimately acquainted with fear. It helps him cope in dangerous situations.
Das sind Angstsituationen. Also wenn ich abrutsche und mich fange, dann gibt es einen Schock in mir. Der Pulsschlag spüre ich hier oben. Und dann bin ich auf dem Seil und dann muss ich mich erstmal beruhigen. Und wow. Aber es ist immer wirklich, ich habe immer ein Gefühl, als ob etwas auf mich aufpasst. Aber mir sagt ein Gefühl, nein, es geht nicht, laufe ich nicht, mache ich nicht.
2 days before the world record attempt, Freddie returns to his hotel room with a sinking feeling. The conditions are disastrous, and he's received bad news from back home. His 4 daughters won't be able to come because of school. But even when his family is not with him, they still ground him.
Komme nicht nach St. Moritz, bin mit dem Herzen bei dir. Ich weiß, du schaffst das. Solche Sachen, das gibt mir Kraft, das ist schön. Das stellt einem dann wieder auf und sie würden gerne hier sein und wir vermissen dich. Und ja, das ist schön. Ja. Stopp.
Just one day to go before the record attempt. Once again, Freddie can't train. He has to go up the mountain once more.
Jetzt haben sie heute noch Wassertanks hingehangen, damit es mehr Gewicht hat. Weil jetzt wirklich die Schwingungen nicht rausgehen heute, dann haben wir ein Problem. Da geht es halt wirklich 1000 Meter runter und da muss ich entscheiden, was kann ich mir zumuten. Das beschäftigt mich jetzt.
Today, Freddie flies up the mountain alone to test everything in peace. We remain at the middle station. It's uncertain whether they'll manage to solve the tightrope problem before tomorrow. The decisive day has come. At 6 o'clock in the morning, Freddie flies up the mountain. The extreme athlete hangs from a long line at an altitude of 3,500 meters. He's abseiling from the starting point. Never before has Freddie worn his non-transparent carbon helmet at this altitude. After a few attempts, he gets a nasty surprise: the thin mountain air. As soon as the 50-year-old exerts himself, he experiences a shortness of breath.
Ups, haut's mich um. So ein bisschen schwindelig. Das ist schon anstrengend für mich, für einen Dorfjunge von 600-500 Meter über Meer. Ne? Das ist schon ein bisschen krass.
Freddie braves his first test run. At the moment, he's still secured. It's still uncertain whether the rope is stable enough for him to attempt the world record without any safeguard. Freddie is having problems with his balance. The problem? He can't breathe underneath his helmet. He has to take it off. The tightrope swings wildly. Freddie is having trouble staying on. He's in danger of falling, and he's running out of strength. He aborts.
Hui, ist mir schwindelig, hey. Wow. Ist halt schon alles locker da.
But there's no time left to adjust it. The day for the advertised world record attempt has been set.
Merkst du, runter gehst wieder rauf.
Although the conditions have never been this bad before any of his other walks, the father of 5 does not use any safeguards. Freddie is fighting for his life at an altitude of 3,500 meters on a tightrope only 18 millimeters wide. From now on, he can only rely on himself. No safeguards, no safety net. The rope swings wildly. Freddie almost loses his balance with every step. Keeping control is a tremendous feat of strength. The air is far too thin. Freddie is almost unconscious. He has to take a break. But the swinging rope pulls his body weight to the right. With difficulty, Freddie tries to balance this out by using his pole. Finally, Freddie does it and sits down. The extreme athlete tries to gather his strength. Below him, a free fall of 1,000 meters. But trying to get back up turns out to be a disaster. Freddie does not only have to lift himself, but also the pole weighing 40 kilos. On his second attempt, Freddie tries to get up slowly, but once again he can't find his balance. he's feeling very dizzy, but giving up is not an option. Finally, the tightrope walker is firmly standing once again. Originally, he had anticipated that the walk would take only 15 minutes, but he's already been on the rope for 20 minutes and has only got 1/3 of the way. His strength is already dwindling, and coupled with the thin mountain air at an altitude of 3,500 meters, these are conditions he's not prepared for. At the Swiss flag, Freddie has finally reached the halfway point.
Wow. Ich glaube, mein Puls auf 300, hey. Wenn ich auf 400.
From here on, Freddie wants to walk blindly. Can he risk it? No, Freddie doesn't put on his helmet. Even without it, the unsecured tightrope walker is fighting against the swinging rope and breathlessness. Nevertheless, even without the helmet, it's still possible to break the world record for the highest tightrope walk, provided he doesn't abort. Now Freddie has to face a second challenge. He has to shift his entire body weight forwards as the incline begins. He has to clear an altitude difference of 50 meters. But once he has mentally distanced himself from wearing the helmet, he proceeds quickly. Only a couple of meters to go. After 39 minutes, Freddie has finally reached the goal, thus breaking the world record.
Wow.
Genial, super. Kann man gar nicht beschreiben.
Bist du enttäuscht, dass du es nicht blind geschafft hast? Was ist Enttäuschung? Enttäuschung ist da nicht zu reden.
Mich kennt man, ich gehe auf Safety. Ich habe große Schnauze gehabt, blind, Helm, alles. Und ich sage mir einfach, ich riskiere nichts. Ich suche mir einen anderen Platz aus für den Blind, aber dann machen wir es besser.
Freddie did it and mastered the height. From Switzerland, we fly to Portugal. Nelson Rocha lives in Annice, a small town. We meet the 34-year-old car freak in his family-owned workshop. We've seen him on a video.
Sim, é verdade, é verdade.
But is the video real or a fake?
Sim, o carro é aquele. Não, este. Aqui.
Ok.
Sim, isto é um motor de um Peugeot 406 Coupé, que tem 218 cavalos, é um 3000 de cilindrada e é um motor muito forte.
Nelson has installed wide tyres without tread at the front for improved traction. In addition, he has significantly shortened his Peugeot 205.
Ele só puxa a tração às duas rodas da frente.
So, it's a front-wheel drive. That's a real surprise. A second surprise awaits us when we look inside the car. There's no passenger seat, because the car has to be as light as possible to do a donut. But how exactly does it work?
Sim, os dois aspectos mais importantes que são para conseguir fazer um donut muito rápido é conseguir primeiro o desequilíbrio do carro. É daí o ponto principal de um bom donut. A partir daí é só o carro, é só ganhar velocidade.
Before he can start, Portuguese Nelson has to warm up the tyres. That way the car gets the best possible traction. He doesn't seem to be particularly excited and drives the car expertly over the tarmac. One thing's for certain, he seems pretty confident, and we've got a first glimpse of his driving prowess. Then it's finally time. It's hard to believe what's happening in front of the camera. Nelson has not even fastened his seatbelt. As if he were in a centrifuge, the G-forces push him into his seat. And it's obvious, the pressure cuts off his air supply.
Sim, eu sinto-me um pouco tonto, mas já é o hábito. Isto é uma questão de treino, nós habituámos-nos e passa a ser quase normal.
The term normal seems a bit out of place considering the images. The rotational forces even bend the car's body out of shape. What a speed! It's definitely too much for our action camera at the back of the car. We count a total of 22 revolutions in 18 seconds. We just want to know, how on earth does he do it?
Isto consegue atingir a velocidade de donut assim rápido porque deve-se ao peso do carro está equilibrado ao centro, quer dizer que temos um motor muito pesado e uma traseira muito leve. Consegue formar um desequilíbrio que passa a andar só uma das rodas de tração no chão.
Simply unbelievable. From Portugal, we fly to the swamps of Venezuela. Jesus Rivas lives and works here. He's one of the few snake researchers who risk getting close to these enormous reptiles, and that's in his bare feet.
Normalmente voy calzado hasta el borde del agua, pero una vez que llego al agua me siento mucho más a gusto descalzo porque puedo sentir lo que está debajo de mí.
He's fascinated by anacondas the most, the largest snake in the world. When he began studying the giant snake, he barely knew anything about it. By now, he's studied more than 1,000 snakes, an animal that can easily kill within just a few seconds. But Jesus isn't afraid.
No.
Bueno, yo cuando ando con Jesús, cuando lo veo que se mete a las aguas muy profundas, yo le digo, bueno, Jesús, ahora sí me vas a hacer morder con una culebra grande, ¿no? Que me falta que me muerde una grande. Y él me dice, no, tranquilo.
The first step is the hardest. Jesus has to surprise the snake and then immediately press its mouth closed. If he's not fast enough, it quickly becomes extremely dangerous. That's because the snakes can grow to a length of 6 meters and weigh more than 100 kilos. Nevertheless, Jesus has a trick, just in case the snake is faster than he is.
Por eso es que... Entonces lo mejor que uno debe hacer es agarrar con la otra mano y en lo que uno lo agarra, la culebra abre. Entonces ahí uno saca la mano. O si no, uno empuja la mano hacia adentro más y cuando uno empuja la mano hacia adentro, la culebra abre la boca porque le molesta. Así que lo último que uno se le ocurre es esa vaina. Claro, uno quiere sacar la mano para afuera. Anacondas pudieran comer gente si la gente y la anaconda están en el... Si la persona va en el sitio equivocado, en el momento equivocado, la posibilidad existe que la anaconda se lo pueda comer. Yo no he visto no sé de ningún evento, ningún caso en que la anaconda se haya comido a alguien que yo haya podido confirmar. He oído muchísimas historias y cuando he tratado de confirmarlas, ha resultado que no eran ciertas o han sido inconfirmables. Parece tamaño macho, pero es otra hembrita. Mi familia, tanto como mucha otra gente, cuando yo empecé a estudiar anacondas, ellos pensaron que yo estaba loco. Yo he marcado aproximadamente 900 serpientes. Idealmente, a mí me gustaría conseguir dinero de conservación internacional y poder comprar una extensión grande de tierra, probablemente como esta, similar. Protegerla para conservación.
Jesus catches a snake and brings it back to his laboratory. That's where he marks and measures the reptiles. Not an easy task, as they can weigh more than 100 kilos and are also highly dangerous. Having studied such a vast number of snakes, it's not rare to encounter an old acquaintance. For the snake researcher, that's a very special moment indeed.
Y se me echa una vaina, bueno, que la firmen, ¿verdad? No me va a enrollar, coño madre. Después de cierto tiempo, hay animales que yo capturo año tras año llega un momento en que yo conozco al animal, ya yo sé dónde está, sé qué está haciendo. Y uno desarrolla una especie de relación personal con la serpiente. Muchas veces cuando yo llego buscando, oye, ¿dónde estará Olivia? ¿Dónde estará Madonna? ¿Qué le habrá pasado a Mirna? Yo te digo cuándo. Ok, ahí la tengo. ¿Seguro? Segurísimo.
Jesus attempts to pull a sock over the snake's head. Once he's managed it, the snake will calm down and it's easier to examine it. So that he can recognize the snakes that he's caught previously, Jesus came up with a special way of marking them. For this purpose, he exploits a special property of the snake's skin.
Que le corto una de un lado donde va la unidad de 1000 y otra donde van las y 5 donde van las unidades.
¿Hablo con Jesús?
Sí, dime.
Jesús, lo que pasa es que por aquí, a Viejo Bar, encontré una culebra de agua muerta, ¿viste? Está muerta y...
Ok, bueno, voy a verla a ver si es uno de los animales que tengo marcado. Gracias.
Ok, yo espero por aquí entonces.
La vida de las anacondas adultas no es fácil. Nada más comerse una comida puede involucrar grandes heridas en el animal. Entonces, el riesgo existe aún de los animales más grandes de que pueden haber muerto. La última vez que capturé Madonna fue en el 98, fue hace 5 años. A Madonna me acuerdo mucho porque cuando la capturamos era una hembra muy bonita, estaba en la piel lisita, sin herida. Al principio la llamamos Pretty Female. Y después cuando la seguimos capturando, bueno, ¿qué nombre le vamos a poner? A poner un nombre. Entonces, bueno, pues, Pretty Female, Madonna. Entonces le llamamos Madonna.
The snakes live in Los Llanos. It rains heavily most of the year, and then the swamps and shallow lakes are teeming with a myriad of giant snakes. For Jesus, it's a veritable paradise. For others, it's more like a nightmare.
A ver, espérame por aquí que yo vengo más ahora. La gente en toda la cultura judío-cristiana tiene un rechazo natural hacia la serpiente. Y aparentemente mientras más grandes, más rabia les tienen o más miedo les tienen. Normalmente si ven una serpiente la matan al momento en que la ven.
Jesus, on the other hand, has made it his mission to protect these snakes.
Un aficionado a anaconda. Así venga de visita, pero siempre viene a ver sus culebras.
In particular, he would like to see his Madonna again. Maybe she's the one he's just found.
¿Viste la anaconda, Jesús?
Sí, pero no era Madonna, era otro animal que había marcado antes.
Ah, ok. Pero era grande, ¿no?
Más o menos.
¿Y de qué moriría tú?
Oye, no sé, vale, demasiada podrida, demasiada podrida. Ahí yo sería una persona feliz. Bueno, y cuando yo esté viejito, pues sentarme a ver las áreas que yo he ayudado a proteger y deleitarme de esa manera. Me da mucha curiosidad saber en qué están pensando, qué están haciendo, qué es importante para ellas. Su mundo es tan distinto del nuestro. Andar de noche no me asusta más que andar de día. Eso es cierto que veo menos y siento que es menos eficiente. Y obviamente, bueno, los caimanes son más peligrosos de noche también porque son nocturnos.
But at the moment, it's not the snakes that pose a problem for Jesus. It's the armed riders who ask him what he's doing.
Soy yo. Eso no hay problema. ¿Estaban buscando gente por ahí?
Sí, buscando figureros por ahí.
¿Verdad? ¿Han visto algo?
No, de momento no.
Ah, coño, me asustaron. Cayeron por la noche y los caballos, coño, ¿qué pasó? Gracias.
Bueno, suerte.
Jesus keeps on searching and hopes to find a few more giant snakes tonight and thus learn even more about them.
Anacondas son, normalmente cazan en la emboscada. O sea, el animal se pone en un sitio donde está escondido, donde no está a la vista. y en lo que la presa se acerca, es un ataque muy rápido, muy violento. Agarra primero con la boca y después lanza unos lazos alrededor del cuerpo del individuo y empieza la constricción. La constricción básicamente intenta comprimir el corazón tanto que no se puede llenar de sangre y entonces se produce un arresto circulatorio casi instantáneamente. Y eso es lo que mata a la presa normalmente. ¿Cómo va todo? Más o menos. ¿Para dónde ya se ha ganado? ¿Para Corocito?
Para Veladero.
Para Veladero, pero no llegaron a Veladero ustedes.
No, nosotros llegamos ahí caminando hasta ahí.
¿Qué tal, compañero?
Porque yo encontré una para allá.
Ajá. También enrollada.
Jesus sets out immediately to have a closer look at what the men have seen. And he finds an enormous anaconda.
La gente tiende a pensar que los reptiles son tontos y que no aprenden mucho. Cuando yo me acerco a un animal y este animal reacciona violentamente hacia mí, a mí no me queda duda que es un animal que ya he capturado antes.
That's why he's going to take this snake with him, so that he can examine it and determine whether he's caught it before. Jesus Rivas, the snake researcher in the swamps of Venezuela, who risks his own life in order to save the lives of countless snakes. Mavericks Unlimited. The thrill of travel, wild adventure and big machines on this episode of Mavericks Unlimited. Searching for the most venomous sea snakes in the world, we accompany two researchers while doing their dangerous job in northern Australia. Just one wrong move and both could lose their lives.
Got him.
In addition, extremely guarded, in the USA, a bunker has been converted into a housing complex. Here, the residents are supposed to be able to survive any potential catastrophe. And just don't fall. Why steelworkers have a potentially deadly job despite using state-of-the-art safety systems. All this now on Mavericks Unlimited. We start in Australia, in the northern state of Queensland, or more precisely, in Weipa. This is where Dr. Brian Fry works, his job researching animal venom.
My name is Dr. Brian Fry, and I'm a venom researcher at the Australian Venom Research Unit. I'm a venom hunter. For most people, snakes are terrifying, but for me, there's something fascinating. I like nothing better than going face to face with some of the most dangerous snakes in the world.
The tropical waters in northern Australia are a research paradise for the American scientist.
What I do is extreme science at its best. 2 to 3 times a year, my wife and I, Alexia, head up to Weipa to do our sea snake research.
Dave! Oh, how you doing, mate?
Hi, Dave. Yeah, it's great to see you.
How you going?
Good.
Hey there, buddy. Hi, thank you. Thanks, heaps.
Weipa is located in the northern part of the state of Queensland in Australia. There's 2 big capes that form this vast, shallow, warm body of water called the Gulf of Carpentaria. What makes Weipa so special is that the animal life is absolutely amazing. It is truly a Serengeti of venom. What I'm trying to find out is how sea snakes have evolved their venom. They've changed their venom. And our quest in Weipa is to get the individual pieces that we need to form the evolution jigsaw puzzle.
Brian and his team are searching for a very special type of sea snake. They set out at dusk. In the darkness, the sea snakes are easiest to catch.
Let's try to stick around the seabeds tonight and see if we can get out of Stoke, since this is where we got the big one last time.
Okay.
It's our perfect hunting ground. The number of sea snakes here is amazing, but it's also got a staggering diversity. There's about 18 species that are found in this water. In the years that we've been searching here, we've caught 10. Our holy grail is to get a young stoke sea snake because this is the great white of the sea snake worlds. If we can get a small stoke sea snake and get it established, it's like getting a great white to live in captivity.
We're setting up these spotlights now because we need to search for the snakes at night time. Basically what happens is the snakes go down to feed at night when the fish are resting, then they come up to the surface to digest. And that's when we get them with the light, scoop them up, chuck them in the bin.
When searching for Stokes sea snakes, the researchers need to be particularly careful as these reptiles are extremely dangerous. In the dark, a wrong move can happen quickly and have fatal consequences.
Sea snakes are some of the most highly evolved and most toxic of all the snakes. Untreated, a sea snake bite is very likely to kill you. I've been bitten 24 times by venomous snakes, and Alexia has gone through 4 of those bites with me, including the worst, which was actually a sea snake bite.
Snake, Dave! Snake, bring on the left!
Coming up!
Where? Where'd it go?
Just here.
Right there! Go, 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 go!
Diving,
It's going to
diving.
dive! Go down, Dave!
Oh! Far out! That was big!
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a good area, Dave. What depth of water is it? 28 feet? Not bad.
Snake! Come on, Dave!
Brian and Alexia have found a snake. It's still not clear what type of snake is swimming in the water, but now everything has to happen quickly.
Wow, he's away!
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go!
Wow, he's pretty stiff, babe. He's not real keen.
Got him.
Oh, wow.
You're a nice chomper.
That's a big one.
Yeah, not bad. This is a male spine-bellied sea snake. Only the males get these heavy spines like this. People often think of snakes as the bigger the deadlier. It's not necessarily the case. Dead is dead. A bite from a snake like this would cause absolute agony in all of your muscles and ultimately result in death unless you get the antivenom, which luckily works very, very well. Okay, let's put this in a bin by itself. So we'll use this bin over here.
Got the bin up. And
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Brian is primarily interested in one thing, the venom of sea snakes. To research how its venom works, he brings the reptile to his lab.
Venom is a specialized chemical cocktail that the snakes inject to you when they bite you. What it is they've taken an ancient saliva gland and evolved it into this chemical arsenal factory, and it pumps out some of the most virulent poisons known to man.
What I'm doing here is I'm taking this piece of plastic laboratory pipette and I'm sliding it over the hollow hypodermic-like needle fangs that the snakes have, and then they inject the venom into this. And that allows us to collect it more efficiently. This way we capture all of the venom, which to us is quite precious. Venom is so powerful that this little bit from one fang is enough to kill 2 or 3 people.
The next evening, once again, Brian and his team head out to sea. They caught a snake yesterday. Will they catch another one today?
No, it's right there!
On the right! Nice catch! Woo! Oh! Far out!
There it is over there. Get ready to dive. Go, up. Stokes.
Awesome! Back,
Get
back,
it,
back.
3, 2, 1, go. our holy grail of the trip right here. Oh,
Yeah.
bloody excellent.
Oh, look, it's just had a food.
Good, we can find out what it's been feeding on.
Yeah.
This is our holy grail for the trip. This is the rarest of the sea snakes that we've been searching for. This is a Stokes sea snake. It's only the third one that we've ever caught in all the time that we've been coming here. And it's perfect sized to establish in captivity. Full grown, this snake will have a head the size of my fist, will be about 2 meters long, the body about that deep. This is basically the great white of the sea snake world. This is the biggest sea snake. The fangs on an adult are almost a centimeter long, and it can give 150 milligrams of a venom that it takes only 3 to 5 milligrams to kill you of. It's just the ultimate sea snake. Bloody excellent.
Awesome.
Okay.
Brian has done it, and catching this rare snake will be a big step forward for his venom research. From Australia, our journey continues on to the center of the USA to Kansas. We're not allowed to reveal the exact address, as time and again people have tried to force their way in here. We meet the creator of what is meant to be the safest place in the world.
That other people show up with guns, and our guns were bigger than their guns, and they got arrested, and it's been it's a serious business.
We arrive after a half-hour drive through uninhabited countryside. Our first impression, a very high level of security. There are cameras and heavily armed watchmen all over the place.
You'll see the level of security when we get out here. It's nothing to be messing with. If you're starting to climb the fence and damage the property and try to hurt people that are there, we can shoot back.
After a full body search, we're allowed to enter the complex. But what's so valuable here? The answer awaits us inside. Larry Hall, the owner, has converted a dilapidated nuclear missile silo built during the Cold War into luxury housing. It's claimed the residents can survive any type of potential catastrophe. The so-called luxury survival condo goes down 14 levels below ground and provides accommodation for up to 75 people. There is a separate pool, cinema, medical practice, supermarket, and much more. An autonomous town covering 17,000 square meters. If you have the right amount of small change, that is. The starting price here is $1.4 million.
Residential level 5.
Larry spends most of his life down here. As the founder of this housing complex, he's responsible for the safety of all apartment owners. Every morning, he checks whether a catastrophe is imminent. Owing to his previous government job and work at NASA, he knows secret sites that can provide him with this information.
Today we have a 45% chance of an X flare, which is the strongest rated solar flares. These are the kind of flares that with a coronal mass ejection, and it's pointed towards the Earth right now. So we're keeping our eye on this because we're in a kind of a danger situation there. That could definitely impact a lot of people globally.
The bunker has its own specifically developed alarm system. Each resident has an app that immediately informs them about any potential dangers. Orange indicates a potential catastrophe, and red means that all residents are to go to the bunker immediately. A solar storm could increase the alarm status from green to orange. Despite the dangerous situation, Larry has arranged a viewing with a potential customer. Dawn Snyder has 3 children and is looking for secure housing in case there's a catastrophe. Larry wants to prove to her that she doesn't need to sacrifice on comfort.
Is that easy to open then?
Very easy, yeah. But it's also very protective. Deepest in the middle, down by the...
A pool and spa area behind steel doors. These are meant to provide the residents with something to take their minds off things and prevent depression during longer stays. Larry sought advice from psychologists on how to organize life underground.
You can get a cup of coffee in the morning, come up here, be around some trees, have some high volume ceilings. If you have any little dogs, we've got a pet park over here.
And even the dog's business is dealt with. An anti-odor spray keeps the air clean by the neighboring climbing wall. The viewing continues 8 levels below ground. Here, there is an inviting library in which to read and relax. Next door, there is another of Larry's key projects. He has also thought about the children's education in the event of a catastrophe.
We envision the moms maybe coming down here and being next door while the kids are in the classroom over here.
A digital classroom. This is where Dawn's children could go to school one day, learning on computers which have a comprehensive library and parts of the internet saved on them.
And teachers, instructors, you have them out on site then?
You rotate. You will be a teacher for 1 month. I will be a teacher for 1 month.
In an emergency, every resident has to work 4 hours a day doing various jobs when the bunker is closed. Therefore, Dawn would have to regularly teach her own children. Rotating jobs, psychologists believe, will help the residents cope with being locked inside. And finally, the luxury apartment in which Dawn and her children would live. The whole level is about 170 square meters and can accommodate up to 10 people. And the cost, just over $3.1 million. And she doesn't even have to go without an outside view.
And what is this?
Those are electronic windows. Those let you know that you are not underground. Everything has these electronic iPads that let you control what you have. So we're in this room.
As it were, these are the windows to the outside world. You can choose from one of 3 cameras installed outside or from additional programs.
It was a real hot day, and Mark and I had been outdoors and we were sunburned. We came down and we go, you know what, I'm putting the snow scene on. So I have this wooded mountain scene. I put the snow on and we turned the fireplace on and we're sitting there going, I feel cooler already.
Dawn appears to be convinced about the apartment's furnishings.
Next best thing. If it's not safe to go outside, at least to be able to look out.
Following the viewing, Dawn is convinced that she could imagine herself living here because the world outside doesn't seem safe anymore.
What are we scared of? And just the world falling apart. And I think it's every day we get closer and closer to it. And I feel better already knowing, we're planning for our future, for our safety, and we're going to be okay.
Larry now needs to prepare for a possible solar storm. Mark Minoski assists him. These 2 men have known each other for 15 years. Together they developed the concept for the bunker. Mark also spends most of his time below ground.
We have 20,000 gallons of diesel fuel stored underground. Let's open up the generators and check their status.
The bunker has 2 high-performance generators. They are capable of producing electricity for at least 2.5 years.
I'm going to put it back in the automatic mode so that if there is a power outage, it will be available for service.
But Larry and Mark are not only prepared for sunstorms. They have a solution prepared for any potential catastrophe. Particularly important, air for breathing. That's why there are various filter systems that protect the air from being contaminated radioactively or biochemically. Larry's luxury bunker is protected by an electric fence, dozens of high-resolution security cameras, and a remote-controlled drone. These can all be monitored and controlled by Larry from a room underground. Apart from a few farmers in the area, nothing attracted his attention today. The alarm is set to green, pure secured luxury, and brilliant future prospects.
This is a 1,000-year structure. It will just be here forever.
And thus, the day ends in what must probably be the safest place in the world somewhere in Kansas. We now leave the USA and head to Frankfurt in Germany, where we go straight to a 140-meter drop. Carsten Bachmann is a steelworker. He has worked on precipices for 30 years and has already witnessed the deaths of several colleagues.
Es ist traurig, aber es passiert immer mal wieder.
Despite using state-of-the-art safety systems, this is because a fall is still life-threatening today, even if the worker is attached to a safety cable.
Ja, wenn ich jetzt hier runterfallen würde, denn normalerweise ich habe 20 Minuten.
20 minutes to be rescued from the safety cable.
Und dann wäre es das für mich gewesen.
In an experiment, we want to find out why it's so dangerous when steelworkers fall using a safety cable. What happens when the worker is hanging over a sheer drop? These two experts are going to help us find out. Dieter Stopper, a mountain guide and climbing pro, and Dr. Marco Einhaus from the German Steelworkers Trade Association, an expert in falling accidents. To ensure that no one gets hurt, Dr. Andreas Kuppel from Munich's Mountain Rescue Service is also on hand. We want to know why steelworkers' safety harnesses can become so dangerous. We decide to compare them to climbing harnesses.
Das ist die Stahlbauerausrüstung, ein sogenannter Auffanggurt. Das, was er hier hat, ist ein weiches Seil mit einem Sitzgurt aus dem Bergsport.
The rope is attached to the climbing harness at the front of the body, which is unsuitable for steelworkers.
Wenn er jetzt schweißen muss oder flexen oder was auch immer im Stahlbau, dann kann das Seil durchtrennt werden und damit würde er runterfallen. Deswegen haben wir eine Rückenöse und binden die Leute am Rücken an.
Thus, a steelworker always has his rope behind him. However, being suspended at the back has consequences if there's a fall. This falling test will demonstrate the reason why. First, Dieter with a normal climbing rope. In order to determine the forces acting on his body when the rope breaks his fall, we attach it to a measuring device. Just like on an indoor climbing wall, Dieter's safety is assured by a belayer on the ground.
Bereit? Jetzt?
No big deal. The impact force using a climbing rope amounted to 250 kilos.
Es tut überhaupt nicht weh, das ist wie wenn Sie sich im Fernsehsessel langsam reinsinken lassen. Genauso fühlt sich's an. Richtig schön.
Because his belayer helps absorb the impact force. But steelworkers don't use belayers or a flexible rope to help break their fall.
Überall, wo man klettert, ist das in Ordnung. Aber das Seil dehnt sich dermaßen stark, wie man hier sieht, dass man praktisch auch am Boden oder an irgendeinem Stahlbauteil anschlagen könnte. Das ist zu weich, das System. Das können wir im Stahlbau nicht gebrauchen.
Only hard systems are viable. So hard that we cannot test the steelworkers' equipment using a person and have to use a dummy instead. The cable is short, only 2 meters long, and at the back there's a built-in shock absorber.
Das sorgt dafür, dass die Energie durch das Aufreißen der Nähte reduziert wird.
But shock absorbers when falling can never replace the safety of a belayer or a short cable, a long elastic rope. But what happens to the steelworker if he falls? The short cable breaks the fall abruptly. The impact force 680 kilos.
Unglaublich bei der an sich überschaubaren Fallhöhe.
He falls 2 meters, but his impact on the cable is 7 times his body weight, the upper limit of what a person can withstand.
Im Körper wird es Quetschungen geben, Prellungen, Blutergüsse, unter Umständen Rippenbrüche, unter Umständen auch Läsionen an der Wirbelsäule.
The steelworker would survive, even if he's injured in the process. But he can't just abseil to the ground. He's left helplessly dangling in the air. Steelworkers know the consequences of hanging in this system all too well, but they constantly have to maneuver into awkward situations in this job. Thus, Carsten Bachmann has already seen several colleagues hanging.
Es gibt Leute, die lächeln dann danach, es gibt Leute, die lächeln dann nicht mehr, weil man hängt ja doch 1,5, 2 Meter tiefer. Und wenn dann keiner ist, der dich hochholen kann oder du hast kein Höhenrettungssystem, dann sieht es schlecht aus.
Why does the cable that initially saves the steelworker's life subsequently become a pitfall when hanging? In order to find out, Dieter Stopper is prepared to hang in the steelworker's harness from a forklift truck. For a comparison, Dr. Marco Einhaus hangs next to him in a climbing harness.
Ja, wir haben schon ein bisschen Kribbeln im Bauch. Das ist jetzt gar nicht so einfach hier.
At some point, hanging freely can become life-threatening. That's why Dr. Köppel permanently monitors their blood circulation, oxygen intake and blood pressure.
Wenn es denen plötzlich schlecht geht, dann können wir innerhalb von Sekunden das Experiment abbrechen.
Time to begin. 2 meters in the air. Dieter feels the effects of hanging from his back immediately. He can hardly move at all in his harness.
Ich hänge wie ein nasser Sack, ich kann mich eigentlich kaum regen. Völlig bewegungsloses Hängen.
His body's center of gravity is hanging forwards. Too much weight is pressing against his extremities. And compared to the climbing harness?
Ich kann mich ganz gut bewegen eigentlich, wegen der vorderen Aufhängung.
Being suspended from the front, the body almost swings at its center of gravity, thus remaining relatively mobile and comfortable. However, being suspended from the back is already uncomfortable in the second minute.
Das schneidet ein, das schneidet hier im Brustbereich ein. Die Schenkel, die schneiden extrem ein, man sieht es hier und hier. Ich merke, dass es mühsam ist für meinen Körper, das Blut durch meinen Körper zu pumpen.
Der Puls ist von 80 jetzt auf 130 angestiegen. Das zeigt also eine Kreislauffehlregulation an.
After only 2 minutes. What's happened exactly? A so-called hanging trauma is imminent. Owing to the loss of mobility, the blood is collecting in his legs and can't flow back to the rest of the body. His heart and brain aren't being supplied with enough blood. Dieter feels this lack of oxygen in just the 3rd minute.
Also ich merke jetzt, dass es mir leicht schwindelig wird, dass ich sie jetzt demnächst doppelt sehe.
That's the lack of oxygen, and Dr. Köppel aborts the experiment.
Innerhalb der nächsten 3 bis 5 Minuten, denke ich, wäre er bewusstlos geworden.
That means after a fall, steelworkers have approximately 8 minutes before losing consciousness. And after just 20 minutes, internal organs will fail. In contrast, they could hang from a climbing harness for hours without any problem. Now we know why steelworkers have one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. Mavericks Unlimited.